Step into a world where ancient wisdom meets modern mysticism. Introducing the Gnostic Tarot, a powerful fusion of esoteric art and Gnostic themes designed for those who seek the ultimate gnosis. This mesmerizing deck, rich in symbolism, draws from the profound teachings of Gnosticism, serving as an ideal companion for meditation, reflection, and the exploration of spiritual realms. Whether you are a seasoned tarot enthusiast or new to the practice, the Gnostic Tarot caters to all, offering a portal to ancient wisdom and a tool for uncovering the hidden truths in your mystical journey. Unveil the mysteries, embrace the wisdom. The Gnostic Tarot is a timeless companion for your spiritual odyssey. Take a journey with Gnostic luminaries and learn their stories in a visually stunning manner. From Sophia to the Gnostic Christ, their journey is your self-discovery. Choose from the basic deck or the deluxe version, which includes a beautifully crafted journey book and a magnetic storage box, ensuring that your Gnostic Tarot remains a treasured companion on your spiritual quest. The Gnostic Tarot is an original and collaborative effort between Miguel Conner of Aeon by Gnostic Radio and Matthew Schmitz of Altrusian Grace Media. Visit our website to embark on your journey today. Syncrasis Publishing, where ancient wisdom and modern mysticism converge. Happy heresies, and welcome to the desert of the real. Heresy shouldn't be this much fun, but it is. It just is. Especially when you can get your hands on the Gnostic Tarot, and especially when you arrive at the virtual Alexandria for those ancient Egyptian mysteries and other forms of esoterica that are at our fingertips today to really expand our consciousness, heal us, and get us through the other side of this age of Hermes, Philip K. Dick world, and Gnostic times. It's gonna be good. And as always, my name is Miguel Conner, your Pompadour of Gnosis, and I'm so happy to see you or hear you or be with you in whatever format or medium you are in. And I already see some very cool people over there in the chat. Hello, Chester, Mr. Francis of Sophia Klatt. Nicole, how you doing? I'm sure the chat will be probably pretty tame today, as it is the day after Labor Day, and people are getting back to school, finishing their vacations, and God forbid, some people are probably already buying pumpkin spice lattes at the store, but whatever. That's another thing we have to do, is mock this crazy society we live in. So very excited today to be joined by Annie Bond. I wanted to say a sort of James Bond joke, but then, people think I'm doing dad jokes or Facebook jokes. But Annie, thank you very much for coming on the show to discuss your book, Awakening Prana.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I've certainly had many, many, many Bond jokes over my lifetime. And I have 3 sisters, and we were certainly the Bond girls back in the day. So.
The Bond girls, love it, love it. So yes, speaking of an eternal archetype or trope.
Right.
But good deal. And with us too, we've got the original Florida man. Graham, how are you doing? And thanks for being here.
Oh, doing very good. Looking forward to singing the bioelectric, as they say.
Yes. Good one. So awesome for everybody. As always, if you have any questions or comments later that you want to bring to the forefront, please super chat them so we can separate them. If I see anything interesting, I'll bring it up, because again, this is sort of a post-holiday weekend show, but it will be a very useful show. So Annie, let's talk briefly about yourself. You, as you write, and you have always been sort of the mystic slant. You've had several mystic experiences through your life. You see through the world. Is there any, do you want to share any of the big ones that really change your worldview, or tell us how you came into who you are today?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I had what was considered a normal life, pretty much. I was recently married, a painter, sculptor, in my mid to late 20s, and I worked at a restaurant so I could paint during the day, and there was a gas leak that sent 80 people to the hospital, and I was one of them. And I had what they called was permanent central nervous system damage. And I do believe anything can be healed, but that's the diagnosis I had. And I had a very, very rough stretch. I was actually in the hospital for 3 months. And then I ended up with just the best, I have a sister who's a biochemist, and she just got me to one of the first environmental medicine people in the world. And that was 1980. So you can only imagine way back then. And I was properly diagnosed as having multiple chemical sensitivity. That the damage to my central nervous system made it so that I couldn't tolerate the world at all with chemicals. And so, I moved 10 times in 4 years and this and that, and finally got into a healthy home. And there are many silver linings. I got well enough to have my daughter, and I ended up with a very prestigious career in green living because I was one of the first people that had to learn how to live without chemicals, or knew that they were doing that. And so I wrote 5 books on green living. But people that were as sick as I was tend to always have to push the envelope to try to find something, that I just wasn't, Western medicine wasn't helping me. And I became a Reiki master. And I wasn't taught well, I have to say. So I'm not anti-Reiki. I just wasn't taught well. So that didn't do it. I did a lot of work with Kundalini, and that was hugely helpful for my spine. So I got onto this path that way. But in answer to your question, I had 2 really mystical experiences that did change me forever. And the first was before I knew any of this. I'd always been a pretty psychic little girl, I think. But didn't know it at the time. But after my father died, I went up to the house I grew up in, and I was in the living room, and where he had been just the morning before. And I saw this ball of light sort of a foot from the ceiling. And I just knew it was my father in all his best attributes. And he'd fought in a lot of suffering in World War II, a lot of trauma from World War II and this and that. But he was a really real humanist, and here he was at his absolute most beautiful essence. And I just knew that was his soul at that time. And then, fast forward many, many, many years, and I was already had a lot of training and healing, but I still had my day job and the green living and this and that. And I was awakened in the night, and I was given a healing that was the most extraordinary thing you could ever imagine, right? Because I'd had enough healings that I knew what they felt like. And it was so tender, and it was so aware and so conscious of my personal journey through life, which has been complicated, and with such tenderness and insight. And I eventually was able to get back to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and I thought, my God, that must be the Divine Mother. I didn't even know what the words meant, but that's how it felt. And so actually, if I have a second to wrap up this circle back to my father. So a few months later, I was doing a healing trade with a really good healer I know. And I thought, well, gosh, maybe I can help. What happened to me happened to her. And so I was at the table and asking that whatever came in for me, can it come in from her? And all of a sudden I saw this ball of light over the table, but it was her soul. It was her at her most wonderful essence, all the wisdom about her. And I thought, oh my goodness. So it was my soul that came and gave me the healing. And this was the soul, the same thing I saw with my father to make of. And so I started the Divine Mother practice, because it was really asking the soul to give the healing, because all the wisdom came through. So that's sort of my biggest teacher. Those are my biggest teachers.
Yeah, quite a journey. Thanks for sharing. And the Divine Mother, is this what the umbrella ultimate divine figure.
Well, it gets a little confusing because I called it the Divine Mother. It was
Right.
really my Divine Mother, my soul.
Okay.
So in my friend Sharon, whose soul came in, it was her Divine Mother. But we are all under the umbrella of the Divine Mother at the same time. So it's a
Yeah.
little confusing, but it's the soul mother in this instance.
No,
So
makes sense. And I know in your book you do talk about experiencing a shaman death. What is a shaman death for the audience?
well, I love the medicine cards, and they talk, and the back card talks about how it's when you're, well, actually, I have it right here because I can say this exactly sort of what they say. It's that the shaman death is the symbolic death of the initiate to the old ways of life and personal identity.
Mhm.
The basic idea of ancient initiations was to break down all the former notions of self that were held by the shaman to be. And so that's what happened to me when I was poisoned. It was
Mhm.
literally, I was all but taken out. I mean, I was this far from being killed, right? So, and when I came around and was well enough again, it was radical change.
No, that makes sense. I am in my research for my Elvis book, which comes out next year. Yeah, I did a lot on the shaman because he was America's shaman, and there's a concept of the wounded healer. The
Yeah.
shaman is the one that had a near-death experience or was really sick, and going through the threshold, they came back with treasures,
Yeah,
inside. So I think that's what you went through.
it's true. And, the soul has a way of knocking us on our head if we're getting off if we're off our path. And who would never have dreamed where I ended up? None of it. but I ended up this way because of that. So
Yeah, here you are healing the world. That's the best job we can do, from the Gnostics to the Rosicrucians to yeah, the shamans today, and that's what we need so much in this world. So, why don't you tell us about the premise or your book, Awakening Prana? What's it about? How is it different than other books?
well, I mean, I think with this particular, with you and this particular audience, I can talk about the channeling of the book
Mhm. Oh
in a
yeah.
way. So I found a stone in my driveway 22 or 3 years ago, and it's shaped. For those of you that know what the Old Man on the Mountain looked like in New Hampshire before it was damaged, is a very Native American looking head that was on
Mhm.
the rock outcropping that was on a mountain in New Hampshire. And this looks very Stone Man. I call it the Stone Man. It looks very, very Native American, has a very prominent nose and eyes. And I started propping the stone next to my computer. And I would look in Stone Man's eyes and I'd start typing. I'd ask questions and go back and forth. And we're talking, reinventions. Like, it took me years to shoulder the fact I was channeling, but I started realizing that the information I was receiving from Stone Man had this profound wisdom about the energy body, just absolutely so profound. And I'm very clairvoyant. I'm an energy healer. I have been for 20 years, full time for the last 10. And so it worked out incredibly. It was interesting. So I would receive some information from Stone Man, and then I would work on myself, because I'd always work on myself first and then bring it to the table. And so I was able to verify, gain questions, go back to Stone Man. And so I have the Stone Man diaries, or, like page, years and years of, and it's all about the energy body. And so, because I was taught healing to be, it was very static. It was like, okay, you go in and you clear out the chakras. And I was like, but wait a minute, I've been here with a pitchfork with my third chakra for, years and years and years, and I'm not
Yeah.
making any progress. And because so that's all about movement. And ultimately, I just want to show you this incredible diagram on the front of the book, because this is the energy body that Stone Man has taught me. And so this is the whole book, is to activate this entire energy body so that so that it moves through you and clears everything, and you connect to source this way too. And so it's very profound. And it was something I never knew myself. Again, it was I just kept working with Stone Man and working with Stone Man, and the whole book is the teaching of Stone Man, actually.
Oh, that's fascinating. So what would you say is the energy body? Like, for example, the Neoplatonists used to call it the Okema, and then the Gnostics also called it light body. It was usually used to go to astral travels, to go to the other side, avoid the giant snake, all that good stuff. Is that something we have? Is it something comparable to our aura, or what is the energy body? And also, you talk about the matrix of light. How does it work to the best of your abilities to explain?
Well, I became there's a wonderful book called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, and she is a beautiful channel book on the Essene Mystery School, and she has a page and a half on Jesus's healings. And as a healer, I poured over that page. I mean, it is so intense. So dense and so profound. And I've spent so much time just on that page and a half. And she talked about him activating the exotonal grids, AXI, so exotonal. And I just started researching those and talking to Stone Man, going into all these ancient texts too about the exotonal grids. And what it really came down to is that we as a modern culture have disconnected so much to the sort of yin and yang actually energies that of what we are, our biology, which I can explain in more detail, that we have. Therefore, this system isn't flowing, and I'll come back more to tell you about that, but the system's not flowing. And so because it's not flowing, we are disconnected from source. And so we're not receiving the amount of source energy that is our natural birthright as an energy body, to have the energy body flow. So it's a it's a bioelectric system, in the sense that like a car has a negative and a positive charge.
Right.
Humans have a negative charge, but that's the yin, it's the mother energy. And we have a positive charge, and that's the yang, that's the father son, mother earth, birth mother, birth father, the divine mother, the divine father. These energies have to come into equal balance. And because then when they're in equal balance, they connect to create a spark of creation then comes in, and it gets the system going. And so, we're disconnected from the earth. We abuse the earth so much, the mother, etc. So you're shaking your head. Yes, it sounds like you understand what I'm talking about. So
No, this is one of the reasons I've been doing more of these shows with healers and so forth. People, we can talk theory all day, but how are we going to get better? I feel sometimes want to study, but to actually get down into the exercises that will bring effect, not to you, just to your life, but to the world, instead of freaking out on the internet and all that. The other thing too is I'm very passionate about is, yes, I believe we've lived with this mind-body separation for so long. When they are one, our body has intelligence, our body has certainly has trauma, and these two should work together for healing. As they say, 95% of who we are is our subconscious. It's our body doing all this work. And as Steiner and even modern medicine is saying, our heart stores memory, our gut store memory. They're always telling us, you're too stressed, you need to change your diet, you need to do this. So basically, figures like you is great, because you're basically destroying that barrier, that we are just our body holistically wholly. We can heal ourselves, we can integrate trauma and all that, right? We can really change who we are.
And it's so hopeful. I mean, it's so hopeful because you can absolutely. And the other thing that I love about this work is that we're really here. I mean, it's really an embodied awakening, because we're on the planet, we're connected to Mother Earth, we're in the polarity of Mother Earth and Father Sun. We're not having to go out of our bodies and be elsewhere. I mean, I think that's the incredible brilliance of this, is that it's to come into connection to source here in now. So
Exactly. So, how does your system work for exercises? I want to get into, so the audience can get really understand. Because, for example, I'm saying, well, how do we separate the mind body? How do we get connected to the earth? I always tell people, well, sit down, shut up, and breathe, meditate. The answers will come. But in your system, how do we get the bioelectricity system to reboot? If you want me to use that analogy.
Well, the thing is that it's 9 steps. And so in the book, I have the first part of the book is all the details about why we need the 9 steps. And then the second part of the book are the meditations, and they're QR codes. So you can go right through to the sound. Stoneman channeled to me the hertz and the sound healings too. They're very, very profound. And so, but as I say, they're QR codes, so you could get all that on. But the 9 the 9 steps are these. The first step is to be here now. It's to connect to Mother Earth and Father Sun. And it's also really, really essential to understand the value, and I mean, not the value, the essence of the elements in our lives: earth, fire, water, air, and ether, because we are that, right? I'm 72% water. I am all the elements. I'm not separate. There's no separation between me and the elements. And so that first step is very deep, to also connect to the Earth Star chakra and our Soul Star chakra, and be here and embody. And when we do that, we really connect to the earth grid, that we embody by being here. And so and it's very grounding. The second step is to connect to our house. And so, I often see this over our heads, but it's also the sacred. We are a lot of my work is to the soul and the higher self, because we gain so much wisdom. I mean, that's the source of wisdom for me, and so we move out of our ego-based operating system into our love-based operating system, and we sort of are in the it's the Kanda chakra is the one that's at the top of this third chakra, and it's really the altar of our essential self. And so this is the goal, is to move more and more into this aspect of ourselves. And so and a lot of getting there is being in heart coherence, dropping into the heart chakra and tuning into a feeling of gratitude, that kind of thing. And then, so that's the first, is to be here now, embody. And then the second is to connect to who you really are on a soul level. And the third is to start bringing into this yin yang balance. And so there are like multiple ways we get out of balance, and most of us can recognize it in ourselves. So, the exploitation of the planet makes most of us yin deficient, because we don't. So building a relationship with Mother Earth is important. Some of us are actually more deficient in the sun energy, and we need more of that father sun energy. I was a case in point. I needed more of that to come into balance. Then most of us have, or put it this way, everybody, I don't know anybody that escapes the mother and father wounds. And it's no blame and shame of anybody. It's just the way it is on the planet, right? We were all born to unhealed mothers and unhealed fathers, and we become unhealed children. And so it's a very deep healing to have your soul mother and your soul father, who aren't the same as your birth mother and father, to fill you where you're depleted, where you didn't get enough. And so that's really important. And then the third big way is connecting to the Divine Mother and the Divine Father. And so we have three very straightforward ways of rebalancing ourselves where we're depleted. And it's very heartening because it's very straightforward. It's relatively simple. And a lot of it is by asking. I ask Mother Earth to bring me a healing. I send love and gratitude to Mother Earth. They're straightforward ways we can do that. And so then what happens is that we're embodied, we connect to our higher selves, we're getting yin and yang in balance. And so then we move into this bioelectric aspect that is enough of the yin and enough of the yang, enough of the negative and enough of the positive. And those two energies, and this is step 4, connect. And when they connect, they ignite. And that's the creation spark, right? It's just like the egg and the sperm, so this is the creation spark. And that energy and the elements are really important because they move energy. That energy then becomes a vortex of energy that then activates this entire system. But if you're not balanced enough in the yin and the yang, you can't, just don't have enough to get the spark, right? So that the more of that spark you get, it's just a powerful vortex, which is then the next step, which is that vortex and filling it with yin and yang. And what happens also is that, am I making sense so far?
Yeah. And we'll bring in Graham later and he can let us know. So
Yeah.
Please continue.
So what happens is then that with that vortex, it also starts blasting away the low vibration density of the suffering that we have, that's glommed onto our energy body, right? Because suddenly there's this flow, and it literally, I call it the master blaster because it blasts away. It's the density, the suffering, we hold on to it and it gets denser and denser and denser, and this helps blast it away. And then the fifth step after that is to release, because we want to release all of this breaking up, this energy, this dark energy that's breaking up and leaving us. And so once that happens, then we can really connect to source. And so we have what's called the central axis that comes down through us, and it carries all the light of source. And as that density leaves, and that spark of creation, it can draw the light of creation out into all of our cells, and we come into a powerful, reconnection with source at that point. And then the seventh step is the energy body that's inside of us, is like inside. The Mother Earth comes up, Father Sun comes down, and that you drink in the yin, Mother Earth, like with a straw. It's called pranic breathing, and the sun down, and it's powerful yin yang, and that is sort of the final vortex that then gets the whole torus around us flowing. And when the torus is flowing, then creation that's the ninth step, is the creation energy flows everywhere, and it brings profound healing, really does. I mean, you can regenerate your entire system. So it's not a simple concept when you stumble across the vortex, but it is, I've seen it with my clairvoyance, where one guy, for example, he just really was depleted in the Divine Mother, and I kept pouring it into his heart. And then all of a sudden, we're asking it to go into his heart. Boom! The whole system started flowing, and it shows up for me that in the real world, in the work that it actually functions. So.
No, that makes sense. And you mentioned about the book you read with Anne and Jesus, and what a sync, because I think this week I think we are having a Marguerite Religioso, and she's written a lot on Mother Mary, and how Mary was not what we think the Virgin Mary is wrong. When you look at the infancy Gospel of James, she was actually part of the sacred priesthood who was able to give birth to the Savior, Jesus. And of course, Jesus was all about healing, and as I argued, he was about healing and he was about hunting Nephilim, as I like to say. But so they were doing this healing, and your system also, we're not talking just physical ailments, also you can heal trauma.
Oh, totally. And it's a whole, and it's also, it just connects you closer and closer to the source, but it's
Where all the answers are.
absolutely, because it's very, the Essene Mystery School, of which Jesus was a part, is huge,
Right.
you know, part of
Yeah.
sync. I mean, they're very deeply in sync. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. What about ancestor healing? Can you work on ancestors too, or is just this lifetime?
Well, it's actually so profound, because as you think of like the Vesica Pisces, which is the overlap of the sperm and the egg, and then it makes the third cell, which is the birth of the person. If you think of this in terms of fractals, so you heal this and you heal that, and then that heals their mothers and fathers, and then that heals their mothers and fathers, and it's really fractal how that works, I think.
Yeah, makes sense.
And yeah, so absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yes, for everybody, I see, good conversations in the chat. If you've noticed, I have a little different setup. I am still without a computer. I borrowed my son's little, my 10-year-old son's little rinky-dink computer. So that's why things may be a little bit off, or you might be getting shows without an intro. But yeah, the cavalry is on the way. Been a pretty challenging time, as both my PC and my backup both died. But things are going to get better. But we do what we can. And for those out there, please support so I can get my there's help on the way, and individuals like Graham and Vance and others have been very helpful. But please support this show in any way you can. Subscribe, share, and all that. Definitely check out Annie's book and the QR codes, because just these type of energies, they do work. So, but I want to bring in Graham. Graham, do you have a question or two for Annie, or comment?
No, absolutely. Again, she's mining a lot of the same territory that I've gone through, slightly different terms, where, the energy body, the vortex, is very similar to what I learned as, castanetus, luminous egg. I see, the higher self as the guardian angel, sort of thing. One of the thoughts that I had is, if she had any insights into connections between that and like old school mesmerism, where he was using like magnets and such to manipulate the body and all.
I have thought about that, and I haven't looked into it, but it makes complete sense, right? I mean, having worked with this, I would say yes, but I just haven't gone down the pathway to find out where and how it fits into my system, but I'm sure it would be an asset, right?
Oh yeah. Any other questions, Graham, or comments?
Say no, that pretty much the other one is like connections to Taoist alchemy and such, because it seems very similar to she's dealing with the chakras and all that, and it seems very much like it would connect to like the Taoist alchemy concepts as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that, as you were implied, I think there are many angles that we come into the same topics using different language, and so it's like different semantics. I think that what's increasingly, and in a way it's very Taoist, but it's not quite in the same language, is what I'm understanding, and is that, and Stone Man, by the way, is a Hathor. So Hathors are, like Tom Kenyon sound healing and the channeling and the sound healers. He wrote Tom Kenyon wrote the Hathor material. And so I've been working a lot with the Hathors, and they've seeded so many of so many civilizations. And that what I'm increasingly coming to is the power that it's all about the sacred elements, earth, fire, water, air, and ether. And that's where the alchemy is. That I mean, if you think of the Emoto work and, you know, the water, he's the guy that worked with the water and the frozen crystals, and that when it's imbued with love, they're like mandalas, and if they're imbued with hate, they're, you know, the energy gets all horrendous. So if you think I'm 72% water, right, and I'm this and that, and it all adds up to 100% of me, I'm the elements, then. And ether, I look at ether as being source. I look at ether as being eternal love. And so if I ask for elemental perfection in any part of me or my whole self, then the emotive work comes into play right there, because it's, and I use the word perfection in a spiritual way. I'm not using it in a 3D competitive way. I'm just talking about the perfection of the elements, right? That's where the alchemy is, because you come into the perfect mandalas of the energy, you know, the sacred geometry corrects, and all of a sudden everything starts working. Does that was a bit of a tangent, Graham, but you sort of see where I was taking that?
No, definitely. I see where you're going with that one, and I see the connection. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I guess why don't we turn the tables to how do we get into this mess? I mean, how, as you write in your book, there are blockages. We start blocking these energies. What are the things that block energy? Obviously, as we've talked, trauma is a big one. As I say, trauma is that wound that won't heal. It's not what happens to us. It's what happened inside of us, and it just stays there. Is the old, as I've learned, Annie, the canard, or time heals all wounds, I realize is a canard, because it does not. It's healing heals all wounds, but what in our life blocks us to the bioelectric body in the system?
Well, I mean, in some ways you could say it's sort of stacked against us, because I mean, so many friends of mine and I, we're like, what are we doing? You know, so like somebody who has a horrendous, like, there's a great example of a client. I use this example a lot because it's just so clear. I saw him when he was in his 50s, and he was beaten up a lot as a child. And so he has a severe father wound, and he's very depleted in healed father energy. So for him, you know, until he can address the fact that he's got to heal his father wound, he's still going to be depleted in that yang energy, right? And so that's what I mean, it's stacked against us. We all know that we sort of, those of us that stumble into this more spiritual world, we often get pushed here because of something like that. And so there has to be this intention, I think, to start trying in good faith, trying to untangle some of the web of our own lives. And I've learned something that's actually really changed my life and many others when it comes to thinking of trauma. So I was always taught to go in to work with the chakras. And again, as I say, I felt like I was in there with a pitchfork, but because the energy would be so stuck in there. And it just finally, I've really understood that the trauma isn't held in our chakra. That's where it manifests. And so it's our auric field around us. And there are 7 main ones, and they're very connected to each chakra. So there's red as the first auric field, and then it's orange, and it goes out and around. There's no density out here, but this is where the memory of the trauma stays. Okay. And so what happens is that, as let's say you're that guy, he is constantly on some level in his great subconscious, right? The world's not safe. You know, nothing, I'm always going to get hurt, you know, this whole series of things. And that all manifested in his first chakra, but the trauma is in his auric field. And so that's where the healing has to happen is at the original trauma point in his auric field. And so that's the there's a, color becomes very powerful for healing trauma in our auric fields, for example. And it's a bit of a process to untangle that, but it's actually very simple.
Yeah, indeed. You do the work and you show how to do the work. And what about low levels of energy, lack of purpose, all that? What how does that how do we get into that? What happens and what can we do about it?
Well, that sort of profound lack of vitality is being disconnected from this system, right?
Mhm.
And so you want to get the vortex going. So one, and lack of vitality often is in the first chakra. So you definitely want to bring healing to your first chakra. But I think that something I do every day of meditation, and I lead every class I lead all the time, is I just send love and gratitude to the heart of the earth. And there's this law of reciprocity that when you send love like that, Mother Earth will send it back up to you. So I send love and gratitude to the heart of the earth. I feel the energy then coming up my pranic tube, and then I send love and gratitude to the heart of the sun, and Father Sun energy comes down. And then, so you then start getting this yin and yang energy flowing up and back and through you. And so many people who I've worked with do this, and they just say they do it every morning and it completely changes them. So in terms of vitality, you're beginning just by doing that, you're getting the Father Sun, the Yang, and Mother Earth.
Nice.
And so again, it's simply I send love and gratitude to the heart of the earth, and I send love and gratitude to the heart of the sun. And that's just I can even feel it now as the sun comes down. It's really strong.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Gratitude, as I say, is an Archon killer. And it reminds me, there's a story I want to share, and one of the listeners shared with me. He sent me this great message on Facebook, and it's something by Norman Vincent Peale, the great father of New Thought and all that. And just so I can trigger some people, he also was Trump's mentor, but I like to trigger people sometimes, but he was true. Trump did go to his church and, that magical thinking. But anyway, he was talking about he was having issues with his life. And somebody told him, or he told one of his followers, said, write down what bothers you. And, in AA, we call it the fourth step. And he wrote, my wife complains, the children, the boss, the usual things, da, 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 da. And then later on, he was feeling better and he wanted to get through. And he said, well, write down your gratitude list. Da, 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 da. And then he put it out and he realized, oh, my God, my resentment list and my gratitude list are the same. I am grateful for my wife, my children, my boss, my job. So it's really, a lot of it is perspective, right, Annie? Is once we clear our energies, we see the world in a new way and everything just comes through.
Yeah, it totally does. It really does. And you just end up being it's just so much better flow because you're not jamming up against all that sort of darker energy. It starts flowing away. So
exactly. And what do you do? Do you tell your clients to take antidepressants or meds, or is that you don't worry about that? Because I don't.
Well,
I don't criticize. I haven't taken antidepressant in like 13 years, but I would not criticize somebody who did. But I do tell them it's a temporary stop that eventually will block a lot of things. But what do you tell people?
I tell people that I'm certainly not going to interfere with their medical treatment
Right,
or anything like that, of course. But what I found is, there's this really well-known fashion designer came to me, and she was Stoneman had just been teaching me about the Divine Mother, the yin yang balancing in our energy body, and so I was working with it. She was so depressed. She had a horrendous father wound, and the healing was on her father wound, and her depression went away. She was never been depressed since.
Wow.
And I find a lot with the healing of the mother-father wounds that it really helps bring the yin yang and balance, and depression really profoundly lifts about that. And I meant to say, but it was a tangent, but I think it's interesting, that in terms of the mother-father wounds, this man I was telling you about, when I tuned into his soul father, who's not the same as his birth father, who was such a brute, his soul father was like the Dalai Lama. And so his life journey was really to understand himself as a man. And until he started on that life journey, he was missing almost the main point of his entire life, right? And so to heal the father wound so that he could then embody this unbelievably beautiful divine male energy that he carried on a soul level was just a beautiful thing to witness. So
yeah, indeed, it's so nice to hear. I think I want to mention some super chats here. Chester, as always, thanks for the support, my friend. Francis, thank you very much for the donation. Really helps keep the lights of the pleroma going. But he did have a question. Orgone related to the concept of prana. What about Reiki? Well, I don't even know what Orgone is, I have to admit. Do you?
it's Orgone.
Oh, Orgone, sorry.
I
I'm trying to
presume
get
it's
all
yeah.
sophisticated. Orgone.
I think you would be a better answer of that than I. So
Yeah. Well, for the lay person, what is prana? That's the title of your. Well, how do you explain to people what prana is?
well, prana is life force energy, and so it's that is the in chi, and Chinese it would be chi, but it's life force energy. So
Okay, so it would be like the Shakti or
yeah,
Shakti in Hinduism and other
yeah.
concepts like that. And it's usually associated with fire, right? When I do yoga, my instructor, get your prana fire going.
Well, the Shakti is more of the feminine, and so prana is a true blend of yin and yang, and it's not just fire; it's earth, fire, water, air, and ether. So, I did one of the really interesting things I do in one of my schools is I teach. We do a weekend where we do shamanic journeys to each one of the elements, and they so that, like, one of the great things I love about the Hathors is that they talk about the elements as being actually these huge beings that have agreed to come to give us form. And so if you think of each one of the elements as actually this huge consciousness, it's a really special way of it shifts you. I mean, it took me many years my mind was sort of blown thinking of that. It took me many years to really integrate it. But doing shamanic journeys to them, for example, doing a shamanic journey this is an example of how we can undo trauma, right? To ether, I saw on this journey these trees and these huge spiders unwinding their threads that were around these trees, and it was the unwinding of illusion. And so, we get like that guy this famous case, where he thought was beaten by his father. His illusions were that the world wasn't safe, that wasn't any of these things. And the unwinding of illusion then frees a person to finally see the reality of, wow, that was just a story I told myself, being a witness to it. And that really makes a difference. So.
Yeah, it does indeed. And are you a proponent? I'm assuming you're a proponent in reincarnation.
Well, I hadn't really, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't really thought about it much until I started being a healer. And then I have seen so many past lives that I can't possibly doubt it.
Really?
At this point. I mean, I just see them and see them and see them and see them. And I mean, they could all be energy manifestations. It's possible, but I just, you see the gravestones or whatever, so I do totally believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty agnostic on the mechanics, but I know there's a continuation of some sort. So yeah, like you, I'm just going with the flow. And if individuals, so how do individuals work with you? What are some of the ways you work with clients? I think you mentioned it, but just so we get it all straight, you've got the book. What are other ways you
Yeah,
work with others?
well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I have closed my one-on-one client practice because it was just too much for me. But what I really love is teaching people how to heal themselves. And so I have this Path to Healing program that I have. It certifies a person to become a healer too, but one doesn't need to go. I mean, I've had a hedge fund manager who took this program because he wanted to go into boards meetings with an open heart, right? Or, that kind of thing. So it's really what I love to do is to teach people how to leave their ego-based operating system and move into their true authentic self. And once from that perspective, they can heal themselves and others. And then the book is different. The 9 steps of awakening prana. This is a roadmap to get your energy body moving. And there's one of the meditations at the end. You could do all the 9 steps in a 6-minute meditation every morning, for example, or you could do the whole long meditation, which is about 30 minutes. But you don't have to slog through everything. You could just go to like the QR codes and oh, there I am. But that's the and that that's what I teach in retreats, like in Sedona, and I did one on the solstice, and I do retreats so that for the 9 steps, because I think what's really important to understand is there's really profound sound healing that goes with it, and that was also channeled. And so the sound healing is designed to bring you into, like, the first step, connect to the Mother Earth, Father, Son. The second sound healing is to connect to your higher self, and the third is to connect to the yin yang. And so you could just do the whole thing completely somatically and just with sound. And so it's really deep. It's really deep. There's one of them, the 7 steps to awakening prana, that's I think it's in the 8th, I can't quite remember the exact step it is right now because I changed it recently, but I used to listen to that 45 minutes before I go to bed at night, and 45 minutes when I woke up, and it totally brought me into coherence. It was really, really strong. You could also listen to those on SoundCloud, Awakening Prana on SoundCloud, or YouTube. I've got
YouTube, yes. I went to your YouTube channel. I'm going to use them because I use YouTube for different meditations every night. I always change my music so my ego doesn't get comfortable, like, I know what this music's like, so I'm going to start wondering about today, or
Yeah, no, exactly. So there's self-love is one of the most popular sound healings that Stone Man gave, that's on my YouTube channel, Awakening Prana, and also they're all of them are on there. But that's really a great way to do it. So.
And how long, when you have clients, typically, how long does it take before they see positive effects, like especially body healing and all that?
Well, like that woman who had the depression, it was just like that, I mean,
To mention
really
that.
normally. I think what happens is that things clear pretty quickly, but then all of a sudden they find themselves on a much deeper spiritual path. And so they repeat with me because they really want the whole system, that it is that they, you sort of come home to themselves. And so they want to move more into things. So, I mean, I have some stage 4 cancer clients, and I work with them. And, at that stage, it's a little complicated because on a soul level, do they want to stay or go? And, on that kind of thing. But in terms of physical health, I can tell you, for myself, I had to, the first time when I was really sick, I couldn't go into New York City without an industrial gas mask. And I travel all over the world now, and I've never, I totally lead a normal life. And this was because of this work. It was nothing that Western medicine did. So.
There you go. Yes. As I mentioned, the body holds so many of your secrets and it wants to work with your conscious self and it can heal. This is scientific. So many books are coming out. Like my favorite, obviously, as I mentioned a lot, Gabor and Daniel Mate's The Myth of Normal. And this one is heavy on the statistic, but it's all there. Mind body separation is a lie. Body can heal the mind can heal the body, and all that. And it gets pretty esoteric at the end. So I think, as I like to say, we really are on a threshold where we no longer have to have our mind separated from our body. We don't have to be separated from nature, from one another, no matter what social media and the internet and that wickedness in high place is trying to do. We can be united and still be us. But before I get into a tangent, Graham, as we get to the end of the interview, any last question or remark?
I was just going to sit there and building off of what you said is, I love the work that Annie's done on Prana. And I was curious if she's had any insights into follow-up stuff with the other types of Shakti, like Chitta or Atma, dealing with the mind or the soul. Tag.
Could you be a little more specific? Because I'm not sure I quite follow.
Oh, I was talking. Those are the three primary types of life force energy in the Indian chakra system. You have your prana, which is the body energy. You have your chitta, which is Shakti, which is your mental energy, and then you have the Atma Shakti, which is your soul energy. And they differentiate between the three, and they're definitely related. It's like three different levels of the body, and three different levels of the being.
Right.
And I was just go ahead. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And I apologize. It's sort of a semantic thing because the Atman is my step 2, for example. Mm-hmm. And so it all weaves, it's all the same, and it totally is.
Oh, my apology. I'm sure we learned it with slightly different, different meanings with the same words and different words with the same meaning and such. My apology for my confusion.
It's not at all, not at all. Because what I'm saying is that we all actually, if we could take the language away and make it really simple, we'd all totally understand each other immediately because we're all talking about the same thing. So,
definitely.
No. Actually, I had an editor work with me she's almost like a Vedic nun. And so she was really involved in a lot of the opening up of the book to other types of belief systems so that it could be more comprehensive.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think we are at the end. Annie needs to get somewhere. I need to give my son his laptop so he can get some education. We're homeschool kids here, but hey, my son can do a Rubik's Cube in 10 seconds, and he plays chess for fun. So watch out for those homeschool kids. But we are at the end again. Check out Annie's website, awakeningprana.com, right? Yep. I'll have this on the show notes for sure. And I hope everybody's recovering from your vacation. Yeah, I know we need a vacation from a vacation, right? I certainly believe that. And this Friday, again, very excited to have Marguerite. We will be discussing Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Sophia, the Christian goddess. I hope I don't butcher this. Parthogenesis, the idea of giving birth to yourself in different levels of plane. So it's going to be mind-blowing. And next week we will be discussing the shadow work and Jung and other great things. So a lot going on in September, but we are at the end now. First of all, Graham, thanks for being the wingman on this journey.
Oh, it was fun as always. Always happy to help, and it was great learning from Annie.
It is. And Annie, thank you very much for coming on Aeon Byte, and thanks for writing this book. And I'm definitely going to check out the meditation. Probably tonight. I will be visiting your YouTube channel, I promise.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to Graham, too. But I really enjoyed being here. Thank you so much.
Oh, pleasure's all ours.
I just wanted to add one thing.
Sure.
It's all about regenerative medicine. That's what we're emerging to, right? And that's what we're all trying to do is regenerate, So that was
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, if you ever find out a solution, notice back there, That cat sleeps all day. Tonight, as soon as I try to meditate, it's going to have a claw on my toe,
Oh,
or it's going to be wanting to go out. So when you can find a way to master cats, you let us know the great miracle. But yes, we are at the end. I'm glad everybody was here. Glad you enjoy. Hey, James, always good to see you, my friend. And yeah, lots of exciting things to go. Please support Aeon Bite. Please support Annie. As again, we are at the threshold of a new age, of a new way of seeing reality, of a new form of consciousness. And individuals like Annie are pioneers. They're on the vanguard. And what's on the other side is going to be truly amazing. And it's going to be great. And yes, our egos may not be happy, but our higher selves will be in charge finally, as they should. So take care, everybody. And thanks again for being here. And as I always say on the show, write your own gospel, live your own myth.